Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
This morning, I'll ask my questions in French. Vous avez tous les...
Both of you broached the issue of definitions of coercive control. And Ms. Omenio, you've said that the bill doesn't go far enough to define what coercive control is. So I would like to hear both of you speak on this. Would it be necessary to add a definition? And what can we do to recognize or to prove coercive control?
Did you want me to start?
Oh, go ahead, Melanie.
It's up to, sorry. I want to tell you that we need to define coercive control, because when you're relying on, which you are with this bill, on police to be able to define that and the justice system, if there isn't clear defined parameters about what coercive control is, not only will our community not be able to see themselves if they're under or if coercive control is a part of what they're experiencing, but the police will, rather than help support them in pushing forward to put perpetrators into a position of being charged, they'll say, well, they don't have enough parameters, we're not sure if this meets. So because of that subjective nature, it has to be defined as to what is coercive control, and maybe even examples of coercive control.
Thank you, Chairperson. I think that there can be a combination of the definition in the law and then practice guidelines. In the UK, they have a guide that provides comprehensive instructions on how to interpret and apply coercive control legislation, and those examples, I think, are helpful. I believe the committee also met with Dr. Carmen Gill, and I've been able to see some of the work that she's been doing on research to train police and to help them recognize signs and symptoms of coercive control. So I think that would be a necessary component, whether it's captured in the law itself or in very clear guidelines, but there should be clear guidance on how to recognize and intervene.
Merci, thank you very much. Peut-être étiez-vous présent?
Maybe you were present during the first hour when we heard our two preceding witnesses. We were told that this could represent an increased risk that the police services see abuse when there isn't any. So, Ms. Omenio, I'd like to hear what you have to say about this, about the undesirable consequences or unintentional consequences, especially with racialized populations.
When it comes to intimate partner violence, very often police may misinterpret, but I want to tell you our experience has been with the women that we've worked with and who have told us their stories, is that very often the police officers don't take their intimate partner violence seriously, and they actually are left to be victims. And in fact, we can show you story after story where police didn't properly approach situations in a careful way, and women ended up dead. So it isn't always a clear case. And I know that intimate partner violence is a very tough thing, because it means usually people that are trying to be controlling and trying to be coercive and with their partners do not let the outward world, including police services, see what's happening. So I'm probably going to be the person that tells you that I think that there will be far more police looking and not seeing the coercive control than there is going to be that they've overstepped and are charging people that wouldn't be found. And I agree with what the previous speaker had said too, that the justice system is set up to protect the people that are being accused. It's not there for the victims. So I think that there's many places within the justice system that would help support them if they were wrongfully accused.
Thank you again. Vous avez aussi mentionné
You also mentioned that the fact of criminalizing coercive control might minimize the presence of other offenses. Could you tell us more about that?
Il vous reste seulement 30 secondes. Je ne sais pas si... I was asking you to answer that, but if you haven't...
Madame Omenio, est-ce que vous avez...
Ms. Omenino, did you hear the question?
Apologize. So I didn't really, I was trying to get it, but I didn't.
OK.
Je m'excuse, mais
OK.
I think...
Okay, I'm sorry.
Vous pouvez...
Non, mais je pourrais le faire, mais je pense, Madame la Présidente,
I could do it, but Madam Chair, I think I would like a call to order, not because I'm liberal, but I think that when a question is asked in French and the witness doesn't hear it, the 30 seconds that was remaining should be given to the witness again. And I'm doing it in a nonpartisan way, but I think just to respect bilingualism, we should allow a reasonable period of time for everyone to ask questions and hear the answers. No problem with me if you want to take 30 seconds. Thank you. So, Ms. Omenio, my question was, you mentioned that criminalizing coercive control might minimize the presence of other offenses.
That is sometimes the physical violence as well as the emotional and financial violences that women often are victims of may not be as seen if they just focus on coercive control. So it is important that when they're doing these things that they don't leave out the other parts of where intimate partner violence can really be harmful to the people in our community.
Thank you very much. And that was 55 seconds, but it was only fair to hear the response. Monsieur Fortin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to the witnesses who are here with us today. My question is for Mr. Roebuck. You're the federal ombudsman for victims of criminal acts. So you must hear people speaking to you every day who talk to you about the virtues and the defects of our criminal system. We heard people tell us this morning say that C-332 is a bit dangerous because there's the issue of doubling complaints, and also we're afraid that victims will be portrayed as aggressors excessively because they want to protect their children. Is there a problem with that? The idea of the definitions or the way in which our bill was structured so that victims might be penalized. And secondly, I heard you say in the beginning that you made some recommendations that I found very interesting. I see that you are proposing that we refer to Section 2 of the Criminal Code for definitions and that we remove the 2-year limit. We've already heard that, but I would like it if it's possible for you. I didn't see your brief. I don't know if there's a brief that was prepared that we didn't receive or if I'm the only one who didn't get it, but I would like to have either a copy of your introductory notes or of your brief. But I'll come back to the preceding question I had on the problem that victims might be considered as people having coercive conduct when they're defending themselves.
A lot in our office about coercive control, challenges with family court. I have more concern, to be honest, about how these issues play out in family court than how they're likely to play out in the criminal court. And the interplay between the criminal justice system and family court affects people in real time in custody decisions with their children. And so I think it's a challenging space to find the right balance of the protections for somebody who's been accused, and the rights of and the needs of the person who's been harmed. So I do think that there's a risk for this to be abused, to have allegations of coercive control flippantly provided in family court. I think that that happens in family court already, but if it's a criminalized offense, then that creates a complicated follow-up, I suppose.
Pourriez-vous donner des exemples de situations où ça pourrait...
Could you give us examples of situations where this could be a problem or would be a problem?
As a researcher on youth homelessness, before coming into the role, there were a lot of young people who would become homeless as a result of high conflict in their home. And so maybe there's a high conflict divorce that's happening, or a blended family where the young person is targeted because of the relationship to their parent who's experiencing abuse. I think that the line where there's reciprocal violence becomes difficult. It's hard to differentiate when is somebody fighting back or when is somebody fighting. And that's the nuance that's really challenging to apply the law to partner violence in general.
OK. Et est-ce que...
And, in your opinion, would it would be sufficient to amend C-32? There are the two amendments you suggested. That's why I want to just, maybe you have others. What would you recommend in addition to improve C-332 to better protect victims and punish people who have a tendency to have this kind of behavior?
Victim rights to carry the same weight as the rights of the accused, and in particular that a victim should have the right to be informed of what their rights are when they report an offense. In particular, in cases of partner violence, there's independent legal advice that's available, but we hear in our office often from people who say they were never informed. They didn't know that they could speak to a lawyer for free for advice on the system. And so I think those are pieces that have to come into place if we want to tackle these challenging issues.
OK. On dit au projet de loi qu'il faut avoir...
In the bill, the offense is to have controlling or coercive conduct in a continuous or repetitive manner. And this repetition factor, is that a good thing, or should that be amended? I'd like to know what you have to say about it.
Recognition of patterns of behavior, because one of the challenges with policing and intervening in situations is they might see something that they perceive as relatively minor, and the implications of the control involved aren't obvious to them. And so being able to see, oh, actually, every Friday night, you're not allowed to leave the home, versus seeing it just once. I think patterns are really important, so that's a strength of this law.
15 secondes. 10 secondes.
Merci, Monsieur Roebuck.
Thank you, Mr. Roebuck.
For the final 6-minute round, Madame Baron, s'il vous plaît.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you to our witnesses. There's just so many questions to ask that it's almost overwhelming to figure out what are the most important ones, in particular, since I don't have the opportunity to attend this committee as often as I would like, in particular talking about this study. And so one thing that I've been reflecting on is the bigger discussion here around the fact that we're talking about a tool a tool to be able to move forward in a positive direction, but in no way is this going to resolve the complexity of the systemic issues of the interconnection of there's just so many pieces that need to be looked at. But I do appreciate that we're looking at moving forward with this specific tool, but I also like that we're talking about the bigger pieces here. And so one thing that I'm thinking about is the fact that we're talking about training RCMP, training judges, and that's very, very important and absolutely a big piece of this. But also I'm reflecting on the fact that we should be providing through this study recommendations on how we can revamp the systems that we're currently in. So for example, in my community of Nanaimo Ladysmith, they have